Tee up for a public hearing today. So what we're going to do is let everyone here that's present for these public hearings let you know what the procedures are. What will happen is that a representative in a few minutes from our law department will swear in those that wish to testify before the committee for these conditional use requests. We'll then get a report from our planning department. And then we'll open it up for those who may be in favor of the proposed conditional use and for those that may be against. And then we'll close down the public hearing portion. After that, then we'll open it up to the committee for questions and then to the council for questions after that. Then this evening we'll basically go through the same procedure once again. However, this evening the committee will then make a recommendation to all council either to pass, to decline, or to table the proposed conditional use request. So those are the procedures. Hopefully that should answer all the questions. At this point, though, if there's anyone here wishing to testify before the committee on these conditional use requests, please stand and be sworn in by a representative from our law department.
Hey, please stand, raise your right hand, and answer in the affirmative. Do you swear or aver the testimony you're about to give is the truth? I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. The first item that is up for a public hearing, I do believe, is ordinance authorizing conditional use to increase the size of a previously approved oversized accessory structure at 590 Diagonal. Mr. Antonucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Stephen Brown has requested and was conditionally approved for the construction of 2 adjoining greenhouses toward the back of this property. The originally approved greenhouses would have individually measured 22 feet by 70 feet and adjoined for an overall footprint of 44 by 70. Mr. Brown now states he was in error when requesting the 70-foot length, as these are manufactured in 8-foot sections and difficult to modify. He's now requesting to add 2 feet to the length of the greenhouses, creating 2 adjoining 22 feet by 72 feet accessory structures.
Here you go.
For an overall footprint of 44 by 72. He's also requesting the addition of an 8-foot deep bug screen on the southwest end of the greenhouse. Construction materials and placement on the lot will not change from the previously approved conditional use. Petitioners use this property for single-family residence as well as for agricultural uses for the past several years without negatively impacting surrounding residences. Produce that's grown is taken off-site and sold at local farmers markets. There's no retail sales conducted on the premises. Construction and use of the greenhouse is residential in nature. It should not have an adverse effect on surrounding uses. Both Planning Commission and Planning staff recommend approval.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Antonucci. At this time, we're going to open this up for a public hearing. If there's anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request at 590 Diagonal Road, please feel free to come forward. And if you could provide for us your name and address, and we'll give you some time here to talk to the committee. Thanks.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Stephen Brown, and I'm at 590 Diagonal Road. And the reason why I'm here is because I could not read the original set of plans. They were originally 72 feet, and I either the wrong prescription for my glasses at the time or something, and so I put everything in for 70 feet, which council approved in June of last year. Since then, we've had our financing in place, and I must also add that in addition to selling to farmers markets, we are also picking up a number of caterers and some of the leading restaurants in the immediate area. The original request for the greenhouse was simply that my demand exceeded my supply. We are going from approximately 5,000 individual units to over 19,000. We're doing well, and we will continue to abide by the city requirements. We do not conduct retail or any sales on the property. There's no sign. Unless you have very, very good eyes, it's difficult to see the greenhouses in the back, and we plan to enhance that view already by planting some medium-sized bushes and such around there so that they will obscure the view, but they will not obscure the sun, which is my primary energy source. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of this conditional use request at 590 Diagonal? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone? Anyone wishing to speak against this conditional use request? Anybody against? Anyone? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the conditional use request public hearing on this portion. Is there any questions from any of the committee members or council members at this point? Okay, Mr. Swirsky.
Just a quick comment. Appreciate your resourcefulness and initiative. Good work.
Thank you. It has taken, it's a multi-step, it's a learning experience, but we're ready to go.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anything else? Okay, good. Hearing none, we'll now move on to item number 2, which is authorizing conditional use to construct an office and warehouse addition at 1033 Kelly. Mr. Antonucci.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, J.W. Dodato Electric is in the beginning phases of constructing warehouse and office additions to their existing structure. The new building additions would include a narrow office space along the recessed frontage of the existing structure and a warehouse addition on the north end. A new paved and striped parking area for 18 vehicles would be provided for the expanded office. A retention pond with a fountain feature to control stormwater would be located in the vicinity of the former Moonbeam Cafe at the northwest corner of the property. The area between the access drive and the retention pond would be utilized for parking and storage of commercial vehicles. The parking lot, commercial parking, and the retention pond is located approximately 25 feet back from Kelly Avenue, the right-of-way, with fencing located 20 feet back. Landscaping will be added throughout. The proposed development is compatible with surrounding uses and would have a positive impact on the immediate neighborhood. The proposed additions will allow this long-standing Akron company to expand its business while being a good neighbor. Both Planning Commission and Planning staff recommend approval, subject to conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. This time we'll open up for a public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request on Kelly Avenue? Anyone wishing to speak in favor?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Diana Feidel. I'm attorney at Retzel & Andrus, 222 South Main Street here in Akron. We have a brief presentation for you today that will consist of comments from myself, from Gary Dodato, president of J.W. Dodato Electric, and from David Mann, who is the architect for this project. There's really 3 points that I want to highlight for the committee today. The first is that this is a pretty straightforward request. J.W. Dodato has existing operations at this site, has recently purchased a number of parcels, only one of which is a non-conforming use. There's one parcel that is zoned for retail that needs to be made commercial. Second, that this request has a full commitment to the community. J.W. Dodato has been an active community participant, and their plans went above and beyond to ensure that this expansion would have a nice fence, landscaping, a fountain, and a retention pond. And the hope is that J.W. Dodato will continue to have that commitment to the community and is certainly willing to take on any other considerations that may arise while council is considering this request, because we are committed to the community. We want to stay here, and we want everyone's input to make sure this is a successful expansion and project. And the third thing that we want to highlight is that the project is committed to economic development. J.W. Dodato is expanding rapidly, and Gary will be able to speak more fully to that point. But this project, with the expansion, is anticipated to bring 24 high-paying jobs in the next 6 months to the Akron community. And just as a final comment, we also want to acknowledge that we have spoken with Councilwoman Mosley Samples, whose ward is in this, where the expansion will be. And we just want to express appreciation for her leadership on this and for her commitment in helping us to see this come to fruition. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Dodato, who can speak a little bit more about the operations in the company. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Gary Dodato. The office is at 1033 Kelly Avenue. Been a member and a part of the community since the existence of our business when my father started it back in 1958. So I think over the years I've been a part of Akron and the growth that has been here. And this is what we're proud of, is that we can continue the growth as we grow, as the company expands. Even although we sold the company back 4.5 years ago now, My brother and I still run the operations. We're committed to the city. The company that bought us, Qantas, committed to the city. They're supporting the $3.1 million addition that will, right now, we've already have hired out of those 12 additional jobs that we're going to need. 9 of them have already been hired. We're out of space. We're looking for temporary facilities and offices and putting them inside the facility to get through the expansion of the buildings and through the addition. We have over 700 employees now between here and New Jersey working for one of our major companies here, and that's First Energy. We do a substantial amount of work for them. We still do work at the hospitals, universities, and even down to the largest service division in northeastern Ohio. So being a part of Akron, we are one of the largest electrical contractors from here to the East Coast. And it's kind of like something that we're proud of. We want to continue that growth, and we need to do that with this building, and we need to be able to have that corner lot and get this conditional use permit and get the zoning change. Because when we had to put in a large retention pond that was decided, it just took up so much space. We didn't have any room for growth to be able to put the trucks in there and stuff. So, and I like the idea of the retention pond because it will look very, very nice, especially when we put fountains and such in it. And I think those of us that have been out there to see it, I think we've done a lot for the neighborhood, both there and the facility that we bought from the city, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And there's been a lot of growth. We have over 90 employees now that are high-paying jobs at our office that'll always be there no matter where the company goes. And with a total of over 160 just in Akron. And that grows, that ebbs and flows because we are a large union contractor. You know, it depends on the type of work we have, whether we have a large hospital project or not. But our home is here, our base is here, and this is where we intend to stay. And it's committed by the company that have purchased us, and it just shows in them investing back into the community, which we've always done. So we hope that works.
Thank you, Mr. Dadato, and thank you for your commitment to Akron. Certainly appreciate that. Oftentimes we see companies become successful, and sometimes they land in other areas, but you've committed to Akron. Thank you for that. Certainly appreciate it.
Any questions?
Not at this point. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm David Mann, MPG Architects, 3660 Embassy Parkway, Fairlawn, and I'll be brief. So, I'm the graphic guy, so as folks have mentioned,
would you like to come up? You can come forward if you'd like. We happen to have a microphone here. We're technologically a little behind the times, but we do happen to have a microphone up here and an easel. I think they still call them that. Thank you.
Is that working? Okay, so the light peach color, well, first of all, orientation. Kelly Avenue is on the left-hand side of the drawing, and Aston Avery is on the top. The light peach area is their existing office and existing warehouse. The darker peach color is the addition of the office and the warehouse. And this is the Moonbeam Cafe property under my hand. So Gary had bought a little bit of land over here, and as we started to lay that out and started to look at, of course, the requirements necessary for stormwater management on properties, we started to run out of land, just as Gary had mentioned. So this was a terrific opportunity for Gary to pick up the land and actually take down that facility and put in this pond, which is going to be quite nice. And the whole property is then going to be surrounded by a fence and landscaping. So we're going to try to keep everything contained. There's a gate entrance here, a gate entrance here, and there's a gate entrance back over here. And these are the yards where he'll have his equipment, and of course the warehouse space in the middle. And anything on this real quick? Okay. And then graphically, the office building will be a 2-story addition nestled in a corner. And here it is in a farther away shot, and here's the warehouse location right here in the addition. So I'm here for any questions you have on that.
Thank you.
Should I just leave this here?
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request on Kelly? Anyone else in favor? Okay, hearing no one. Is there anyone against this proposal on Kelly Avenue? Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone against? Hearing none, we'll now open up for questions from any committee members. I do have a couple questions. The first of which is Anderson Avenue. I see, is it vacated already, or have we already vacated, or do we need to? Or is that just a paper street, Mr. Antonucci?
That's, it's a paper street at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So there is a
this
section, though, that would be vacated, though. We wouldn't be vacating.
Okay,
that
so
section there.
that needs to
Yeah.
happen too,
Mhm.
just out of
That's right.
curiosity. That as well as, is that another, is it just Anderson Avenue, or is there another street there?
It would
that-
just be Anderson.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay, very good. That's basically my one question. Any other questions from any council members? You would like your name added. Mr. Clerk, if you could please add Ms. Mosley Samples to this legislation. Any other questions or comments from anyone? No? Okay, good. Well, we'll certainly invite you all this evening to come back this evening for the 7 o'clock meeting in which we'll make a recommendation. The committee will to all of council. Thanks. The next item, which is number 3, is authorizing conditional use to install a monument sign with an electronic message center at 183 West Market. Mr. Antonucci.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, St. Vincent St. Mary High School is requesting permission to install a new ground sign with an electronic message center, or EMC, at the southeast corner of their new parking lot. Overall, the new sign would be 11 feet high by 10 feet wide and have a sign face that measures 9 feet by 9 feet 3 inches for an area of 83.25 square feet. Would be mounted atop a beige masonry block base. The internally illuminated portion on the upper half of the sign would contain the name of the high school and the logo in green, letters on a tan background. The LED section of the lower portion of the sign would measure 4 feet 5 inches by 9 feet 3 inches and utilized as a full-color message center to advertise and promote activities at the school. The petitioners also requested that the sign be set a distance of 2 feet back from West Market Street and roughly 12 feet from Maple Street. Prior to the construction of the parking lot, a building was located on that site that abutted the sidewalk along both West Market and North Maple. Traffic engineering has reviewed it and approves the location. St. Vincent St. Mary High School is located back along North Maple Street. Therefore, a sign set along West Market Street would help to not only identify their location, promote various school activities, but would bring a presence of the high school out along West Market Street instead of tucked back along North Maple. And both Planning Commission, planning staff recommend approval, subject to conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request on West Market Street for signage?
Good afternoon. My name's Tom Yankovich. I'm with Ellett Sign Company at 3041 East Waterloo Road, Akron, Ohio 44312. We are asking your approval to install one monument sign, double-faced. It's actually 9 foot high by 10 foot wide, and it's on a 2 foot high base, as Mr. Antonucci had described. We're asking this because if you've ever been down East Market Street, or I'm sorry, West Market Street, and you've tried to locate the high school, it's very difficult to get there. That school is nestled on North Maple Street, and it has no street presence whatsoever. If you put a sign per code anywhere along East or West Market Street, you know, it still puts the sign at a place that's displaced from the school. You still can't make a connection between the sign and the school. So the location was selected on the corner of North Maple and Market Street, and that's basically to get visitors and folks that are unfamiliar with where the school's at and of the area in general back to the main entrance, the stadium area and such, all along Maple Street. We also wanted it lower to the ground so it could be easily read for the electronic portion and for the ID portion both. They never really had this opportunity in the past until the Costigan building was demolished and they made it into a parking lot there. And if you placed it, you know, further west, it would still keep it away from that intersection to allow folks to find where the high school's at. So really, the best location is on that corner. We wanted to move it up mainly because it puts it in an area where it's the most visible. And since there was a building there, it's really seems to be no issue with visibility looking around the sign. So if you have any other questions at this time, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request on West Market Street?
Good afternoon. My name's Tom Carone. I'm the president of St. Vincent St. Mary High School, located at 15 North Maple Street here in Akron. You know, Tom pretty much covered most of what we have to say, but what I want to add is I think everybody realizes that St. Vincent, St. Mary, we've been around forever. And we're doing everything we can with what we have to improve Akron, not just St. Vincent St. Mary campus. Many of you recall the building that was located at the corner of Maple and Market, and we raised enough funds to take that building down. Our community came through again, and we raised enough money to put in what I call a state-of-the-art parking lot that was well needed. And I think the sign just brings it to closure. As Tom alluded to, many people call us and say, "Where are you?" We're hard to find unless you're from the area. The digital sign not only helps us with locating the school, but now we can really toot our own horns, so to speak. There's a lot of amazing things going on at St. Vincent St. Mary that we want to be able to share with the community. So as you're driving by or you're stopped at the stoplight, again, it's not that the sign's going to keep rotating every 15 seconds. What's up there is going to be up there for a while. But you're going to get the gist of what's going on at St. Vincent St. Mary, help promote our school, which, and I believe, help promote Akron. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor? Anyone in favor? Okay, very good. Anyone wishing to speak against the conditional use request on West Market? Anyone against? Anyone? Hearing none, we'll now open it up to questions from committee members. Are there any questions or comments, Mr. Swirsky?
Just really proud that St. V is in my ward, and admire all of their accomplishments, both academically and as a lot of us know, sports. And I'm really interested in the viability of St. V long-term as an institution, and that's why I'm taking a kind of a good look at the sign. I want to ask you, has there been any thought about the internal lighting? Why did you choose internal lighting over external? A number of, I think right across the street, there's a brick sign on the ground Mr. Brennan has put, and they use the external lighting. I'm just wondering what...
Yeah, the internal illumination was selected mainly for visibility reasons. External illumination works great for, you know, residential areas, that sort of thing, because it's a more passive light. The internal illumination is again for quick recognition, because it illuminates the letters and the logo on the sign and not the background of that. Also the electronic portion of the sign is pretty much the same size as what's across the street at St. Vincent Catholic Church, and so we didn't want it to, you know, overshadow the other one but still be functional for both, which, you know, the sign at the Catholic Church is also internal illumination for the same reasons. Good visibility, especially for a busy thoroughfare as Market Street.
Okay, and Here, the planning department talks about the sign does not flash. So how often, and you mentioned that it will be up there for, or someone, they'll be up, Mr. Crone, it'll be up for a while. Could you give more specifics on how often? Is it going to change, or is it going to be, what does that mean, not flash?
Yeah, during the previous meeting, it was mentioned that whatever's up on the sign needs to be there for a minimum of 8 seconds. As I assured them that day, whatever we illuminate up there on a daily basis, I really do not see things changing, but maybe every 10, 15 minutes. In some cases, it might be there for the majority of the day, depending on what is being up there. If we're saying there's an open house tonight, that's going to stay up there all day. If we're talking about our Model UN team or our mock trial team or the accomplishments, that's probably a 10, 15-minute change with different things going on at the school. So that's why I meant by it's not going to be a constant change.
But just talked about every 8, there is a possibility that if at some point you guys might want to change it so that it can move every 8 seconds? Is that what the agreement is, or?
Well, the condition on the ordinance is that, and it's the same as, well, actually what we have in the zoning code on electronic message centers, and same as with billboards, to where it has to stay a static message for 8 seconds, then it can change another 8 seconds. So it's
8
not,
seconds.
it's not
So it
rapidly
can't,
moving or.
no, it's 8 seconds.
8 seconds.
Okay. Okay. I don't have any more questions.
Thanks, Mr. Sawerski.
I hope this helps you guys.
Thanks. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none. Again, I'll invite you this evening to the public hearing as well at 7 o'clock. Yeah, and if we could meet possibly afterwards, we'll have a little discussion about the proposal. Thank you. We'll now move on to the list of regular legislation here, the balance of which I'm going to recommend time on, short of any questions or comments, and then we'll move on to the new list of legislation, of which the first item is 4, ordinance approving the sale of city-owned land on the east side of West Center Street to Akron Children's Hospital, determining said property is not needed for public use.
Yeah, this was approved actually last meeting for the sale of that children's hospital property. The one small parcel was accidentally left off that ordinance.
Okay.
So it's sort of a housekeeping thing. We have to approve this one to get that parcel in there. But it was all included with the group
That's
of
the whole
parcels.
package. What's the size of the parcel?
Oh, it's square footage, maybe like 80 square feet or something.
8 square.
It's
It was just
really
left
small.
off the last
It was just-
ordinance?
right.
Okay. Consent, okay?
That would work.
Okay. Further questions or comments? Is there a recommendation for consent?
Motion for consent.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Okay. 4A is an ordinance authorizing the Director of the Neighborhood Assistance to enter into contract with the Board of Education of the Akron Public School District for the Community Learning Center's after-school program to provide after-school learning and enrichment activities. There may be someone here in reference to this. They're more than welcome to step forward if they would so desire and illuminate us on. You can come up to these. Microphones up here. If you could please provide for the committee your name and address. Yes, Dr. Albanese.
Good afternoon, council members. As those of you who've been around know that we've been funding Akron After School, at least in part. We're a small portion of their funding for the last several years. And I have lots of material on Akron After School, but I thought it would be good to bring in Desiree Bolden from Akron Public Schools, who's been leading the charge on Akron After School since the beginning. So I'll let you go ahead and give them your address.
Okay, is this on? Oh.
Try it. Is it on now? It is. Try it.
Is that on now? Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah. Yes.
Desiree Bolden, I'm at 65 Steiner Avenue, in the staff development for Akron Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments?
Akron After School focuses on students who have the greatest need. Every child who had it on and turned it off. Every child who's at 25% or below in their grade level is invited to participate in Akron After School, particularly in the area of reading and math. And the data show that students do make a year's worth of progress in a year's worth of time. Many of these students, if it were not for Akron After School, may not make that progress and would fall farther behind than where they were at the beginning. So they are showing successes that make a difference in the lives of students. It doesn't bring them all the students all the way up to their peers in every age level or in every grade, but on some it does. So they have had their full successes and their partial successes, but without it they wouldn't have these opportunities at all. Over the years they've changed. They make sure that the curriculum that the students are working on after school is consistent with what is expected during the day school. They have teachers who are actually working as tutors, so it's a professional staff, so that what the students work on after school matches what they're doing during the day. And the teachers communicate between Akron After School and the day school. So everyone is on the same page with how to help the students in the best possible way. And with that, I will turn it over to Desiree to add a few more points that she thinks are significant.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the council and council members for the continued support of Akron After School. We continue to serve our Akron kids, and as they struggle with their academics, we continue to have this as an opportunity. One of the things, important things to remember about the dollars that the city helps support is our 21st Century funds. We braid that together along with our Title I funds. The Akron Public Schools puts in $250,000, and then they supply transportation. And so the wraparound is that we are in every elementary school in some form. Our 21st Century dollars allow a full site, which includes the youth development, but we stretch those dollars along with the city dollars to help support all second and third graders in the city that need help in reading. So right now we have 1,700 seats that are targeted and intensive children that we have determined will not be reading at their level that they need to be if we don't supply support. So we're extending their day, and we're putting our teachers, giving them more time on the road, basically.
Good. Very good. Questions or comments? Yes, Sims. I'm sorry. First, Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I know this has been a very successful program for some time, and sometimes when something's successful, there's no need to look at it in a different light. But in light of what the community is looking at, some community-based meetings we've been to, what we heard last week, one of the things we're understanding is that we have not maximized on the investment of our CLCs. So one of the excuse me. One of the things that we've talked about in the community is creating more synergy between what's taking place with all the groups that minister to the community and leveraging those to the best we can. And I'm looking at this and I'm wondering if there's some kind of way, because this is Monday through Friday.
Monday through Thursday.
Monday through Thursday. One of the things that we've been looking at is the Saturday school concept in the communities, where Saturday school is used for enrichment for all ages, not just but to bring the families in. Because one of the challenges is so much is poured into the children in the school, and then when it gets home or in the community, it may not be supported the same way. So that if we could bring people in to support the work that takes place Monday through Thursday or Monday through Friday, it'll just exponentially increase the return on that investment even more. So I'm wondering if there's an opportunity, at least, to take a look at how we can leverage that to maybe, in communities where we're looking at the Saturday school concept, to maybe partner. This wouldn't be asking any more of those who run the program Monday through Thursday. What it would be is making sure that we complement what's taking place at that time both ways. Like when you're doing the reading, there's a community read program that takes place in, of course, in the Buchtel cluster that would complement this. So just whenever that opportunity would be, that may be individually or that may be for us collectively. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. What was, you mentioned that you were having a discussion about not maximizing CLCs. Where was that? Out of curiosity.
One was a well-publicized, well, it was on the same day, it was a well-publicized meeting that took place in Mr. Milkovich's ward at East. It was the community meeting. And then in the Buchtel cluster, because of Project Ujima, its whole focus was and is to help us maximize and get the community engaged collectively in the CLC. So we're always looking at how we can maximize the use. I mean, that even goes back to where we're looking at with Mr. Valley and Mr. York, the blanket insurance policy to make it easier for groups to use.
Good. No, that's outstanding. And the one thing, I'd just chime in just a little bit, and the one thing that this council and this city has, as well as Dr. Albanese and Mr. Valley, have been supportive of, and that's our summer reading program that we have in our community centers, primarily because we have staff there, we have people there. It's surrounded by our summer lunch program, and so, and that's serving over 100 kids in our town, which is wonderful. And if and I know APS is also a partner in that, making sure that we get the right kind of reading materials to those kids in the summertime, matched up with volunteers. Ms. Sims, sorry to.
First of all, I want to just say I love Sister Bolton, how you love our kids. I love coming into school buildings and seeing the kids excited after school, the way we incorporate the arts and all the other stuff to help enhance their reading and math skills, so thank you for that. I guess my question would be, first and foremost, is there a budget? Is there
This request is $185,000.
It wasn't, I guess it wasn't attached, so I didn't see it.
Yeah, I tried to find it.
I
On
don't
my
know why it's not
iPad, I couldn't find it, but
attached,
that's
but
what it has been for some time, I think.
For some time.
So the request is
$185,000.
$185,000. Okay, maybe maybe just add that onto the attachment.
Yeah,
What's
it
missing.
should have been
Thank
there.
you.
I don't know why it wasn't.
Mr. Swirsky.
Yeah, I think the money is well spent, always has been. On two levels, I taught for 10 years in the Akron After School program. First as the nature dude, bringing little creatures, working with the kids. But it wasn't just the nature programs that were important. You could see how much the program meant for the whole family, the parents who came in and really appreciated the fact that when they were picking up the kids, and we would dialogue, and really appreciated the fact that the kids had some structured activities. And then when the program switched to being very strategic to assist the literacy efforts that the Akron schools have, I thought that was just really on point. Partly because I had been teaching high school kids literacy in the 9th, 10th grade at Firestone for a year at Buchtel, saw that by then it's very difficult to get to the kids about reading. And all the peer experts were saying, well, you have to get to them when they're in 3rd grade. That's when it starts dropping off. And the Akron Public Schools adopted that, and you guys are complementing their efforts. And so it's money that is targeted, that is efficient, that really meets the need in the community. And thank you for, how many years have you been doing this now?
I feel really old, 21 years, but
You started when you were about 17?
That's it, yeah, thanks, Rich.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Thank you. It's so needed. We wish we had more money to expand the program.
Why, thank you, Mr. Swirsky. Further questions or comments from anyone? Hearing none? Okay. I think we could entertain a motion for suspension of the rules.
Motion for suspension of the rules?
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? You don't have to vote. Anything else coming before the committee? Hearing none, we're adjourned. Thanks. Thanks, Mike.
Done around 1, and then people wanted to talk to me, so I had like 3 people that were waiting to talk to me. I was like, hold on for a second, I'm going to call Mike. Just let him know I might be late. Public safety meeting to order, please. I believe all members are present except for Mrs. Somerville. Before we move on, we do got two new pieces in front of us. We did hold a meeting last week. Can I get approval of those minutes, please?
Motion to approve the meeting minutes from the last meeting.
Thank you. Can I get a second? Mr. Hoke, second that. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? All right, we're going to move on to 2 new pieces in front of us. First one is authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into contracts without publicly advertising for bids for the purchase and/or lease of various new and/or used vehicles for undercover use by the Akron Police Department, declaring an emergency. And we have Jim Hall with us today from Public Works and Captain Shanae from the Akron Police Department.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you recall, earlier in the year, we had legislation very similar to this that we presented. This is a follow-up piece to that. The current lease that was in place at that time has expired, and so we are trying to get these vehicles back into service, these new vehicles.
Okay, thanks. Any questions from committee members, council members? What's your pleasure today? Oh,
Just a refresher, what was the average cost of the lease on each one of the vehicles? Do you remember? I don't remember.
I do not recall off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
So how many vehicles was it exactly?
For this current piece of legislation, it's 4 vehicles that were leased vehicles that will be bought out. The other vehicles are turned in at the end of the lease.
So then we're buying out the 4 vehicles? Do you know what that cost is per vehicle?
Well, it's 60,000 total, so it's
Divided by
roughly,
4.
Yeah, in the $13,000 to $17,000 range, I believe.
And financially speaking, the buy them out is probably better than the continued lease. All right, thank you.
thank you, Mrs. Sims. Any other questions or comments? What's your pleasure on this? I believe.
We would like to have a suspension of the rules because of the fact that the lease has ended, and we want to conclude the purchase.
Okay, thanks. And I know I gave both of you a phone call today, but I do have to say this on record. This is something that means a lot to me. Is I know this legislation came in today at 8:54, timestamp today. I'm a person that always, I've said this a few times before under public safety, is I really like when the legislation comes in on a Friday, so we have the weekend to review it, ask questions, look it over. But today I got to ask the committee for suspension of the rules when we just got the piece 5 hours ago. So I know it's not your guys' fault. This is more towards the administration and the law department. I just have to say that for the record, or whoever. But we got to get these pieces in as early as we can. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that comment, because I guess that would be my same question, too. And so if this seems like it would have been something it just seems like it would have been something we'd have known about for some time, and maybe we would have gotten this in November and not be at December and saying, hush, hush, rush, rush, we need to get this done. So I appreciate the comment, especially when did the lease expire?
November 27th.
November the 27th. Okay, thank you.
No, thank you, Mrs. Sims. I just say that, I've only said that once or twice since I've been public safety chairman, and it's just something, when I ask the colleagues for suspension of the rules 5 hours later. So that's it. So I will ask the committee, can I get a motion for suspension of the rules?
Motion to approve suspension of the rules.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, so thank you. We'll pass that this evening. All right, we'll move on to our next piece in front of us, ordinance number 6, authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids for the purchase of new equipment and lighting for 10 new Akron Police Department cruisers and declare an emergency. And back at Mr. Jim Hall, Captain Shanae, and we do have Deputy Mayor of Public Safety Charlie Brown joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, this is to purchase a lighting package and some of the other additional equipment, such as push bars and other things on 10 new cruisers. These 2 suppliers that we would be going with were the previous suppliers that we had on this equipment. They were actually the low bidders on that equipment. We made some minor modifications to the equipment and lighting. However, now we'd like to go ahead and proceed to get these cars on the road as soon as we can.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jim Hall. Anybody else? Any other questions, comments? Committee members, Mrs. Sims?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since we're not going with another vendor, they can accommodate the adjustments that we made? Okay, thank you.
Yes, that's correct.
And turn it around just as quickly as, okay.
That is correct.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Sims. Any other questions, comments? Anyone? All right, with that, what'd you say again? The suspension of the rules you would like again?
If you need more time, we can go with a consent agenda.
Okay, I'll ask the committee. Committee, what's your recommendation? All right, is that a motion? Motion. Can I get a second? Mr. Swirsky seconds it. Everyone in favor? Aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'd like to call Park and Rec meeting to order in 2 minutes. I'd like to call Park and Recreation meeting to order. Mr. Clerk, you have the minutes. Okay, yeah, we'll approve the minutes so everybody has a chance to look at the minutes at the end of the committee meeting. We have 2 pieces that are before us. Let's see here. Okay, one is a resolution urging the PGA Tour to retain the annual Bridgestone Invitational Tournament held at the historic Firestone Country Club and declaring an emergency. And we have with us Mr. Valley and Ms. Landers-Nish.
Well, we have Councilman Fusco, who is the co-sponsor, along with Mayor Horrigan, and if there's specific questions, Ellen Lander-Nish can address those questions on behalf of Mayor Horrigan.
Okay. Mr. Fusco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. on. I'll also ask Mr. Chamber, I assume he would want his name on this as well. We all are very much aware of what this brings to our community and to Northeast Ohio and the region. I know that Mayor Horrigan and others are actively working to see that this stays in town, and I just thought it'd be prudent for us as a council to get on the record and to pass something and forward it on to those decision makers that they know that we stand ready with the mayor and the community overall to see this continue here in our town. This is a great venue for us, and it's, you know, if you look at in the summertime, it seems as though in our region there's just so many things going on. This is one of those, and it just brings so much money, so much goodwill to many nonprofits, many organizations out there, and there's many, many people who have legacies of volunteer time and hours from the region, from the Northeast Ohio and beyond. Even they just come here to volunteer and be part of this great, outstanding event. And I would encourage us to, maybe talk to some of the other councils out there, some of the other, communities, because we all benefit from this event. Thank you.
Ms. Sims.
I concur with my colleague. It's certainly afforded tremendous opportunities for volunteer for groups of people who normally wouldn't have an opportunity to access that place. Is pretty beautiful. Now, I've heard the surface scuttles about the departure. What do we know internally as to like why they're wanting to go, and what do we see potentially that we can offer to help kind of entice them to stay? If we are free to talk about that, I'd certainly like to know that.
So I'm not sure that we really do know much more than what's been reported, and I think that the real issue is this decision is probably going to be made, there's like a three-dimensional chess being played with where these are located, and if you move one tournament, to different area, there's a domino effect. So obviously we're going to put our best, foot forward, but there may be, it just may be that a very large sponsor makes a decision that kind of trickles down. Obviously our bottom line would be if for any reason we do lose this tournament, and of course we're not giving up on that, that we get something else, a game can be played at Firestone, as part of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So, really we're kind of playing it by ear. We haven't, learned any inside scoop that hasn't been reported. We're just kind of in the same place as the rest of the community, putting that, best foot forward. Mayor's been speaking with the PGA, Don Padgett and others to just make sure that, if there were any opportunities for us to participate in a negotiation, that would be something we'd be interested in doing. Obviously, Akron's a wonderful, we have had a great history with this tournament. It's an incredible course, and people really enjoy it. So we're hoping that we can continue that tradition.
Okay. Thank you.
Did you have something you want to say, Mr. Valley?
Well, the only thing I wanted to say is Councilman Fusco and Councilwoman Sims talked about the volunteering aspect, and I had the opportunity to volunteer this past event in August of 2017, and what a rewarding experience. I mean, the tournament, the players, the fans, they got such a deep appreciation for the volunteers because of the fact that they know that's how this tournament is ran, and I believe we had 1,200 volunteers for this week-long event, so it was really rewarding. And I would encourage anybody, because I know we're going to make this thing continue here in Akron in some way, shape, or form, to volunteer.
Just even looking into legislation, the amount of dollars raised for charities, I don't know how many charities I know that have a van that was donated by the golf charities. But this falls in line of what we were talking about, just looking at where we are in Akron. When we do talk, I'm sure there's been some discussion with maybe Greg Mervis and his group that goes out and looks at things and, what we could bring here. As an avid listener of sports radio, I can tell you what's been on the thing is, like, you're right, this is a PGA decision. They want to expand their market and their reach. Bridgestone is in Japan, so in the time of the year, and then, of course, FedEx is a major sponsor of the PGA. They're in Memphis. Our one hope may be, as they say, is that Dan Gilbert no longer sponsors a tournament in D.C., and maybe he'd look at picking this up, seeing that he has a major investment already in Northeast Ohio. But I guess you always have to be proactive. And just in light of everything that takes place here on the amateur sports or professional sports level, this is an opportunity for us to reinvent ourselves. Like you said, hopefully things work out. But if you listen to sports radio, like you said, that it's out of our hands. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
This is a reminder that we are in, not only for things like this, but in terms of jobs. We're in a global market. It's highly competitive, and we have got to keep our pencils sharpened. We've got to be aggressive and go out there and make the change that we want to see. And this is it's a global market nowadays.
Well, and as you stated, this would not just impact us. This is the region. That weekend you can't get a hotel anywhere. So.
And I would encourage our clerk here, thank you, a senior moment, our clerk here to forward this to the county council, at least, some of our partner cities here, Cuyahoga Falls, Barberton, Fairlawn, some of the surrounding communities, and ask them to to partner with us on this.
I would go a little further. When we go back to talking about some of the volunteers, a lot of our students have had opportunities to see the opulence of that, just that environment there, and would not have that otherwise. So it may be something we consider, even with our own school district, to support a piece of a proposal. And I would move, Mr. Chairman, if it's not too soon, that we consider the mayor and council as a whole.
We'll, minus this evening, we'll pull that out. Are there any other comments from any members of committee or members of council? Not? Okay. Of course, this is yeah, suspension of the rules. Okay. Anything else to be said? If we could get a motion for favorable report with suspension of the rules?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fusco.
Sorry. On
yes,
that
ma'am.
note, too, if we do become aware of any developments, we'll be sure to keep council well informed of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just in light, Mr. Valley and Ms. Nish, it would be pretty cool if we could have Mr. Mervis and his group in to kind of get a regional perspective of what's taking place. So as we kind of like work out look 4, 5, 10 years out on the road on what the potential is, we do have, I know, beginning of the year or last year, we took a look when we knew that we had Rolling Acres coming into our portfolio, and then I think there's another large swatch of land. I don't know if it's still available or if it is available, so I won't mention it, and the potential development of those spots. We can keep these kind of things in mind, these kind of assets in mind when it comes to, I mean, I'm biased. I know you and I have had talks, developing our infrastructure to capitalize on this whole sports recreation market that's out there. So, thank you. Next one is a resolution congratulating and honoring the 2017 Archbishop Hoban High School football team, their coaches, and winning the Ohio High School Athletic Association Division II State Championship and declaring an emergency. I know this one had to be tough for the mayor, didn't it?
You know, he actually sent a text message before any of us and said, "Are we going to do something for Hoban?" And we said, "Of course we are. We're very proud of Hoban, even with his St. V roots." And I said, "I think we should put Councilman Fusco's name on it as well."
Okay. Well, this one's pretty self-explanatory. Any Hoban grad? No, you're a St. V grad.
They went from D3, winning that state championship 2 years ago, to a D2 championship this year. So it's pretty strong. That's saying a lot.
Excellent. This talks about the talent that's in this area from Pee Wee all the way up. We always have folks come in and tell us about championships. So if there's nothing else, oh, yes. I was going to say a favorable report with suspension of rules. Okay. Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Any opposed? Motion carries. If there's nothing else to come before us, we'll adjourn. Thank you.